Okay, I see I am recording. And this is Harry. I called him that. That's my name for him. He keeps showing up in orbs only when I'm using a certain camera. Only in that camera do I ever see him. I think that different cameras have a different way of looking at different spectrums of light. Simple explanation to me is that some cameras get spectrums of light that others can't capture because cameras have filters in them. Some of the very finest cameras have so many filters, you're not going to get the orbs. You're going to get a real good picture of whatever you're taking a picture of. You're not going to get all these orbs. So that's good because the cheaper cameras lack these filters and they get this spectrum of light, is what I think. And that's just my guess, my theory. But anyway, this is Harry. I get him quite a lot. Sometimes I just get a little portion of him, like that's part of his little extended appendage on the left side of him. And I see this little character quite a lot too. When I see this little character, I know that Harry is somewhere nearby because they seem to hang out together. Now, I'm just going to show you a series of pictures of Harry. Now you see that little appendage a little better. It's got a white tip. Sometimes there's different colors in the background around Harry. And there's all these little things. I'll point to some of them. You can see my pointer there. It's little white spots that don't seem to be connected to him, visually anyway. I don't see them, but they hang about him in the same spots, in the same area. And he kind of flies a little flag up here. I call it a little sword-looking flag. This is him, but you can't really tell unless you've seen him often enough as I have. I know this is him because I see the little floating part of him and part of his little appendage to the left. Ooh, that's not showing up very good. Let me get to the next one. Different colors behind him will make him stand out a little better. And some colors make it almost impossible to see him. That's a pretty good one right there. You can see his little flag that he seems to be holding, and a couple of little white spots around him. But sometimes it's hard to see Harry there in this one, but he's there. Here's one where he seemed to loom a little bigger in the picture. And here's one where there seems to be a beam of light shooting right through his body. And there he is, and this little part in the front right there, that shows up real good on him here in that one. Here's one. When I see him, I snap his picture. Okay, now that, I'm going to bring you over here, and this is part of a documentary. I'm going to get it going, where I am using that particular camera. And I'm looking into parts of the orb where I see that it's going to be a short while before I will start seeing Harry. That little floating thing there might be part of him, I don't know. But you see in the background, there's all those little woven areas. And oh no, that's not Harry. That little creature there, I haven't given it a name, except I wanted to call it Period, but I felt it didn't want to be called Period. But anyway, when I see that one, I know I'll see Harry soon. And then I also, while I'm videotaping this, I'm thinking Harry show up, or saying that actually out loud, because sometimes if you say something out loud, it makes it more possible. Now Harry's going to show up right now. See his little appendage there sticking out? Now some people would say that maybe this is something demonic that you're looking at. And here's my answer to them. If you look at things that you don't know anything about, and you have to admit, you don't know anything about this, and you conceive of an ideal that it is something evil, it could possibly be something evil to you, but just to you, because that's how you think and that's how you're making it be. You're constructing its motive and function because you think fearfully, and we live in a world where a lot of people are thinking fearfully, and we do have a lot of bad things around us. But if we would change how we think about things, I think we could surround ourselves with very peaceful, wonderful things about us. Don't put an interpretation on something unless it's a good one. Because don't forget, you are a creator with your words. Now, we collectively create a lot of things, and we individually create with our words. But it seems we're always subject to the collective imagination of people who have thought a certain way, and thus we have to partake in wars and in other things that we don't like because we don't know how to break out of that. But I think the day is coming that when we use our individual imagination to dare to think something different to be true, even if we have to call what is not as though it were, because that's a godlike thing to do, to call what is not as though it were, then we can change the narrative, at least for ourselves, and perhaps for others as well, especially if we can encourage others to do the same thing. So see this little light creature, and don't put a bad interpretation on what it could be, because you're not doing yourself a favor and you're not doing anyone else a favor. Now, I know there's people who judge everything by their idea of what they think the Bible has said in so many strange ways that can be interpreted so many strange ways about the end of time. Well, here's my idea about the end of time. The end of time is not the end of this world, because time is a construct that our Creator uses, just like space is a construct. Creator is mind, and mind is everywhere, but where is everywhere? Is it in a place called space and time? It can be, because Creator can construct that space and time. So if there's going to be an end of time, then guess what? Where you are, I am. Where I am, you are, because there's no space between us. There can be no difference between us. We are one another. We'll realize that we are all in the mind of God, and that thought is what will put us in the space where maybe our friend is, even though they're half across the world. Really, if this world and this universe is all illusion, a construct, something we use to live in and learn different aspects of how to be more like God, unconditionally loving. That's how I see God, as unconditionally loving. Then we have a wonderful way of looking at things that will change the things we look at. Our perspective has to change. We can't look fearfully and judge everything in a fearful way. Sometimes a person is as you think them to be, because say a person is a drunk, and they've been a drunk most of their life, and they've been a bad father, and they've been, they've done some pretty dumb things. And what do their friends say about them? Do they lift them up in their thoughts and say, oh, this person can change. This person is learning through this experience, and they're going to come out good on the other side of this experience. We could say that about that person. But what do we really often say is, oh, that person will never change. They've been that way all their life. There's no hope for that person. That person deserves what they get. They're just bad. So we say those kinds of things about that person when we could, with our imagination, help mold that person into a better person by not holding him or her in that mold they seem to have fallen in, and lifting them up with our thoughts. Just like a mother praying for her child that's overseas, maybe in the war effort, and she's praying for his safety, and she's seeing that he's going to be safe, and she's praying and believing for him, and that keeps him safe. If she worries about him, she's doing him more harm than good. Because worry is a lack of faith. It's a lack of believing that the good that you want could possibly happen. Now, I'm not saying to call things that are as though they aren't. That's different. If you say, well, the Holocaust never happened, well, that's stupid, and that's people just look at you and think you're crazy. But if you say, the Holocaust will never happen again because people are learning to control their thoughts and their emotions, and we are learning to call what is not as though it were, what is not yet as though it already were. It's sort of like the prayer that Jesus suggested in the Bible, that believe the things you say, and you can have whatever you say. You just have to convince yourself. You're the only one that has to be convinced. And when you become convinced of it, it can then happen. There's another thing. Whatever you're emotional about, and we're certainly emotional people. Well, whatever you're emotional about, you're creating more of. So don't be emotional. Don't let your emotions get out of hand when you see something you don't like. You might witness it on the news or in a video and you don't like it, but don't get all emotionally involved. Like this is the only truth. Because you don't want to create more of that. Be emotional over the things you really love, and you'll create more of that. Anyway, that's my little mini sermon today. I always wanted to be someone who relayed truth to people. But first I had to convince myself that I knew some truth. And I think I'm getting there. I read a lot of metaphysical books. I read them on my channel. You might want to look at my playlist. I read a lot of good books. I read several of Walter Russell books, like The Secret of Light and The Divine Iliad 1, The Divine Iliad 2, A New Concept of the Universe, Atomic Suicide, and The Secret of Light. I really especially love The Secret of Light. I also read The Light Shall Set You Free, but that's by Norma Olanovich. And I read a couple of Ken Carey books, The Starseed Transmissions and The Return of the Bird Tribe. And there's another one called The Return of the Dove. I read that book, and it's by Margaret Storm. And the second half of that book is about Nikola Tesla. She knew him in ways other authors that wrote about him didn't know him. She knew him to be a being who was born aboard a spaceship, but his actual home was Venus. He was a Venetian. And he was given to a family in Croatia for them to raise him. And a lot of other things she said about Nikola Tesla that aren't well known is in that book, The Return of the Dove. There's just quite a few metaphysical books I read on my channel. I think I'll do a video one day just showing each one and putting in the description bar the playlist so a person can click into it easy enough. I've made so many playlists that now when a person comes to my channel, they might have a hard time finding anything in particular because they have to wade through so much stuff. So many playlists. But it's worth it. And I will make a video like that. So this was just a video I made where I was talking about Harry and he showed up. And you can see all the activity going on in the orb as it moves. Now, when I'm not doing a movie, I just click on one of these prettier scenes and I have a still picture. But you can see that the orb really is just moving about in a landscape where what you see continues on beyond the roundness of the orb. So this isn't all contained in one round orb. Now the orb is more like a seeing device for looking into this vista of, I think, things that are without mass. I think this surrounds us and that it's invisible, but it is that which the visible, objectified things come from. It is not the illusion. It is, well, maybe it is illusion because you can see it with these pictures, but I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. Sometimes I think it's the etheric world, and sometimes I look for it to have symmetry or to have geometries in it, but the most I get that is geometries are the little woven patterns that crisscross like that when you see in the upper corner there. I get a lot of those little things, and they seem to twirl around. This is a world of light where there are things going on, and I don't know what determines what's going to show up in this world. If our thoughts have anything to do with it, maybe they do, because when I call for Harry, he sometimes will show up within a minute or two after I call for him. And you know, to me, it's visual proof of something that is important, that I don't understand. And science, I wish they would get interested in this world. But it might be hard for them to do because they like empirical, I can't say that word. They like evidence that's repeatable. But in working with these orbs, it's not real easy to repeat something. It's almost like if you want it to prove itself, it just won't. Some scenes I've gotten, I never get the second time. I might wish I could. I might try to set up the situation so that maybe I will, but it's not a thing I can control in any way. Perhaps there is a kind of control, but I don't understand it yet in order to use it. But I do wish science would investigate it because definitely it's there. I've got pictures of it proving that it's there. It's not just light refraction or caustics. I've been told often it is that. And I think by people who don't look at very much of what I film, because if they did, they would realize it couldn't be caustics. I'm filming this without the use of a flash. I'm just filming a gleam of light off of a glass object with a LED light in the background shining on that glass object and making a shiny spot. And so my ideal of this is that a concentration of light in one shiny spot should show us what is in light. Simple as that. I've been hearing from a few people who say they are able to see and film this same thing, and that they also see it without the aid of a camera. They see it with the naked eye. And there's Harry. Harry just comes floating by. I like the little critter, whatever he is. It's definitely strange looking. And I'm going to end this now because I don't want to make it too long and bore people. But give me your thoughts about what you think this is, especially if you have a scientific mind. Give me your thought about what it might be. But if you're going to tell me caustics or light refraction or something like that, I don't even want to hear from you, because I know you haven't really looked at and considered it all that well. So, this is the Dove Lady, over and out. Bye-bye.